in the month of Kartigai, when the moon is in the constellation of Kritika, I shall mount a bright beacon upon the summit of this mountain. They who see that most excellent light will endure and prosper upon the earth, free of disease and hunger. The obstacles confronting kings and great ascetics will be removed. We shall grant the boon of liberation to the kin of those who have praised or gazed upon it down to the 21st generation. This mountain shall have the power to cure the affliction of birth and death. Therefore, one of its names shall be Medicine Mountain. Since it is red in color, Red Mountain will also be one of its names. Hi everyone, Namaskaram. So today on 13th of December, the great festival of Kartigai Deepam happens at Arunachala and Tiruvannamalai. I mean, of course, the festival is celebrated across a lot of places, especially in South India. But specifically in the Arunachala Mountain, in Tiruvannamalai, they light that beacon, that lamp on top of the sacred hill. And if you have been watching my past few videos, last year I was there at Arunachala and I actually did a solo Girivalam around the mountain. It was a very powerful experience, and Kartigai Deepam is a very special day. I decided to do this video which is about the story of Kartigai Deepam related to Arunachala. It's about the creation of Arunachala Mountain and why it is held in such great esteem. And we are referring to this book called Arunachala Puranam, which is the Sthala Puranam of the sacred Arunachala Mountain. In this video, we'll look at a story which is very, very close to my heart because it is close to Kaal Bhairava. Kaal Bhairav and Arunachala have both been really influential presence in my life. They are some of the dearest spiritual bodies for me, and I have earlier created a lot of content on Arunachala itself. So for me, this was very special when I realized that the story of Arunachala creation actually involves Kaal Bhairava, and so they are actually connected. And interestingly, when I went into this rabbit hole with Arunachala Puranam and also referring to Arunachala Mahatmya and Shiva Purana sections, we came across another Panchamukhi Shiva form. So let's get into it. So this Arunachala Purana book is largely sourced from another scripture called Arunachala Mahatmya, which is part of the Skanda Purana. It also includes a little bit from two sections of the Shiva Purana called Vidyeshwara Samhita and Vidyasara Samhita. The story we are going to look at today is a little bit from Vidyeswara Samhita as well, which is the Shiva Purana, because as you will realize, this is an extremely main story of Shiva which we hear across in the Indian culture and mythology multiple times. Now this Arunachala Puranam is actually a lot of rishis like Markandeya and a lot of other rishis are sitting and talking to Nandi. And it is very interesting because this is the first time I have heard Nandi being described like this. They are saying it happened one time that Nandi was seated there upon a lion throne, inlaid with pearls on either side, resting his lotus feet upon a noble footstool, studded with bulky sapphires, holding court upon mighty Mount Kailash. I had never heard that Nandi holds court on Mount Kailash. Then they go on to say he resembled Lord Shiva himself, expounding the arcane secrets of the Vedas to the assembled rishis, his right foot resting upon the back of the demon Muyalagan. Surrounding him on all sides were holy saints without number, amongst them Kurchan, Uromachan, Kumutan, Kumutakan, Chakatayan, Kumbhakatan. I think these are a lot of names known in Tamil probably. And Markandeya is also here. Let me check if they have given Sanskrit names for these folks. So for Kurchan, the Sanskrit is Kutsa, and he is mentioned in Rigveda in relation to Indra. Uromachan is Romasa. He is one of the 18 Siddhas. Kumutan is Kumuda, one of the chiefs of the monkey force of Rama. Kumpachatan is the Sanskrit name of Kumbha Janman, is a name of Agastya. So yeah, a lot of great yogis basically. This was a very interesting image of Nandi that I found very fascinating in this Arunachala Puranam. So the story of the creation of Arunachala is basically the story where Shiva puts forth his form of the unending column of light. You know, when Brahma and Vishnu basically start fighting and they want to prove that each one is greater than the other. And as they are fighting, the entire universe is getting shaken up. And one of the versions, I don't know if it is this version of Arunachala Puranam, but one of the versions within this book, because in the earlier section of the book, they've actually also referred to like what is written in the Arunachala Mahatmya, and somewhere Ramana Maharshi has made notes and stuff. So in one of the versions, when Brahma and Vishnu start fighting, they also start throwing really powerful weapons at each other. And when they come to the peak, like they are going to throw each of their most powerful weapons, then it's like the world will end if somebody doesn't do something. And they throw these two weapons, and Shiva just manifests as the column of light, and both these weapons go and get absorbed into the column of light. So the world is safe, and obviously the column of light is so powerful that it can absorb both the weapons. So, and that really captures the attention of Brahma and Vishnu, and they just silence out, and they are like, we must know what is this. And that's when Brahma takes the form of a swan, which is his Vahan as well, and he just goes up to see the peak of this column of light, like where does it end on top. And Vishnu becomes a boar, and he starts going into the earth to see the bottom of this pillar. They want to fathom what are the limits of this pillar. It's interesting the way the Vahans of these deities have been mentioned. First of all, Nandi is being given this great stature of being like Shiva himself, and then Brahma becomes a swan and Vishnu becomes a boar. So the Vahans are given so high a status in these scriptures. And so as you know this story, like Vishnu keeps burrowing down into the earth, and he fathoms, at some point he understands the truth of this column of light, and he understands this has no end. And he also realizes that this is Shiva himself. After 1,000 years of unimaginable suffering, he turned to the Lord in praise. And he came back to the starting point. He was absolutely certain that lotus-born Brahma too could never reach its upper limit. And he remained there praying homage over and over to Lord Shiva, the distant one. However, Brahma, as you know, he goes on to the top and he ends up meeting the screw pine flower. Screw pine is the ketki flower. I was always very curious about this section, because what exactly is it that leads to Brahma to concoct that lie in his head first of all, and then to tell the ketki flower also that okay, you also bear witness to my lie? And what makes the ketki flower agree to this? So in this Purana, let's see the version they have written. So Brahma also, when he is flying out to trying to reach the top, and he realizes, he also gets very, very exhausted, and he realizes he is not going to reach the top. In this Puranam, he says, I did not realize that this could only be Lord Shiva himself. So Brahma also realizes that this is Lord Shiva. Then he says, by confronting Hari, I have forfeited his friendship also. Ever since I have been drowning in this ocean of sorrows, is this due to my own stupidity? Or perhaps it is the fruit of former misdeeds. Thus far have I travelled, still unable to discover its upper limit. Even if I were to lie about it, what proof would there be other than my word that I had reached it? He sobbed sorrowfully. Okay, so in this, Brahma realizes this is Shiva, but he also realizes that now that I have fought with Hari, because Brahma was the one who instigated this war, he doesn't think that an apology will do. He thinks he's lost the friendship of Hari. And he does kind of regret a little bit, because he does call himself like his own stupidity or fruit of former misdeeds. So he does realize that he's messed up basically. But then he moves, the next step he takes is, instead of thinking about apologizing or doing, repenting for that mess up, he actually talks about lying. Like even if I were to lie, where is the witness? Who will believe me? And then he sees the ketki flower. So he catches the ketki flower, and the ketki flower tells him that let me go at once, because already that flower is feeling really sad, because it's fallen from the crown of Shiva. And it's interesting that somewhere it is written that the flower fell from Shiva's head because he's trying to bless Brahma because it may have just fallen on Brahma. But Brahma actually just catches it and tries to make, it takes it like captive. So he doesn't let go of the ketki flower. He says, "Dear companion, be my friend and help me escape the torment of any further wandering. Other than you, there is no one whom I can trust with my life. I am no stranger, nor am I really a swan. My name is Brahma. I and Vishnu set our minds on revealing the extent of this wondrous object. Off he went burrowing into the earth, whilst I for my sins sought and failed to reach its holy summit." And so he says, "You have come at a really right time, at a very auspicious time. You please talk to Vishnu and tell him that I have reached the head of the column of light." And the way he coaxes and convinces the ketki flower is, it is permissible to tell the greatest falsehoods in order to save the lives of those who suffer. So he basically just becomes a victim and says that I'm suffering so much, please lie for me. Those who prize their friends will agree even to drink poison for their sake. You see, it's so strange. He's actually referring to drinking poison for their sake, which basically Shiva did by drinking the halahal. So he's basically invoking Shiva and saying, "Ketki flower, you please lie. Just the way Shiva helped everyone, you also helped me by drinking poison." And so this ketki flower basically agreed, which is interesting. Because there are stories of where there are a lot of bhakts where if you say Shiva's name, then they will agree to whatever because they're just so pleased that you've said Shiva's name. Maybe that was what ketki flower was doing. But anyway, Shiva did end up cursing the ketki flower. So in the Arunachala Mahatmya, what happens is when Brahma goes back to Vishnu and he says the lie and ketki flower also corroborates, Vishnu decides to believe them and he actually does the Shopchara, which basically does the Guru Puja because he agrees that yes, you are the greater. And then Shiva bursts out. So in the Arunachala Puranam, the way it's written is, "Lotus-born Brahma, you have spoken out of sheer arrogance. A fine thing indeed," said the Lord, and began to laugh, whereupon this world and all the worlds beyond trembled and grew dim. The radiance of all the heavenly bodies faded, clouds disappeared from the sky, all that was fair and beautiful perished, and all that was worthless flourished and grew. The 8 directions were twisted from their stations, and vast forests of trees were blackened, scorched, and burned. And so in this way, the punishment is meted out to Brahma. As you know, at this point, in a lot of versions of the story, is when from Shiva springs Kaal Bhairava, and Kaal Bhairava will chop off Brahma's 5th head. Presumably, that is the one that uttered the lie. And when that happens, we know the rest of the story that Kaal Bhairava then has to do the penance, and he takes the Brahma's head. He carries it around like the skull cap and takes up the Bhikshayatana form. And then eventually reaches Kashi, and all the story goes forward. So, when Brahma and Vishnu are quarreling in this Arunachala Puranam, there is a section where Vishnu basically taunts Brahma and says, "When the divine madman Lord Shiva tore off one of your heads and cast it aside, were you not powerless to restore it and make it your own again? What kind of supreme being are you?" So this is where, because this event has already happened in this story, and that is why Kaal Bhairav does not manifest again later on. Because the tearing of Brahma's head was with Kaal Bhairav. In both sections of the Mahatmya, Shiva's appearance as he bursts open the column of fire and appears before Brahma and Vishnu is described in greater detail than in the Puranam. The Puranam is a lot briefer about this Ugra form of Shiva, which we thought was Kaal Bhairava, but in this it's a different form. So this is the translation of what is appearing in one section of the Arunachala Mahatmya. Bursting asunder the column of refulgence like the moon wandering in the evening sky, mounted upon a lordly bull, dazzling white like the peak of Kailasha, the hair upon his head matted and braided, with the crescent moon as the crest, wearing as described a necklace of skulls of demons and a garland of cassia fistula, with 5 bright faces, each with serpents for earrings, and an eye shining in its broad forehead, and a throat marked by the stain of poison. holding in his hands a trident, a skull, a damru drum, a deer, an axe, a bow, a flawless khatwanga, a sword, and a serpent. His body sprinkled all over with ash, wearing an elephant hide as an upper garment, adorned with all ornaments praised by all the gods, and wearing a tiger's skin as his wearing cloth. He was seen by them thus. Now let's go to the final piece where we say how Arunachala Mountain was created. Basically, once this Ugra form comes out, as we know, and it curses Brahma and the Ketki flower, and then Brahma, entreats them, pleads and says, please don't be so harsh. And then Shiva again says that, okay, you will still be worshipped by the Brahmins before the Havans and all that stuff, and Ketki flower can be offered on Mahashivratri. And he gives some boons to Vishnu. And finally, Shiva says that since I have granted you both such boons in this holy place, may it flourish to a distance of 3 yojanas all around, as the pure and sacred dwelling place of divine knowledge. This great column of fire, assuming a lesser form, shall become a mountain with the power to grant boons. That mountain which unfailingly confers the bliss of glorious final liberation shall be known as Arunaipurai. When the Lord finished speaking, that pillar of fire shrank and became a mountain. And Brahma and Vishnu saw that it is so shining, it is so dazzling, and it's, so much rays of light came out from this mountain. They basically said it is not possible for the gods and ourselves to approach and gaze upon its brilliance because it is so shining. Let it be a simple mountain concealing within itself all those countless fiery rays. And thus Shiva acquiesced, and he says, in the month of Kartigai, when the moon is in the constellation of Kritika, I shall mount a bright beacon upon the summit of this mountain. They who see that most excellent light will endure and prosper upon the earth, free of disease and hunger. The obstacles confronting kings and great ascetics will be removed. We shall grant the boon of liberation to the kin of those who have praised or gazed upon it down to the 21st generation. This mountain shall have the power to cure the affliction of birth and death. Therefore, one of its names shall be Medicine Mountain. Since it is red in color, Red Mountain will also be one of its names. The dates for these events have been given. In the month of Margali, on the day of the Ardra Nakshatra, that is when the pillar of light first manifested. So Brahma and Vishnu are fighting, and this pillar of light manifests and grabs their attention. And so Brahma and Vishnu, they fly off to find the top and the bottom of this column of light. And finally, it is in the month of Machi, that's basically Maha, the month of Maha as per the North Indian calendar, in the second half of the lunar month on the 14th day, which is the midnight of Shivratri. This is the Mahashivratri basically. On Mahashivratri, this whole thing ends and he finally appears in that bright form, and Brahma and Vishnu are both able to do his puja. And that is when he also grants the boon that on the month of Kartikai, there will be this beacon of light when the Kritika Nakshatra is ascending. So these dates are basically from the Shiva Mahapuranam Vidyeshwara Samhita. Neither Arunachala Puranam nor Arunachala Mahatmya gives these dates, but it is nice. The dates are there, so I shared with you. Hope this was meaningful for you as well on these special days of Kartigai Deepam, Arunachala Shiva. Since you watched so far, just letting you know that I have some premium content for members of this channel only. It is stuff that is too sensitive or specific and I am not comfortable sharing in public. So if you are interested, do check out the membership tabs for all the exclusive content that I have out there.